The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, anyone who learns and memorizes the names of Allah can only be guaranteed paradise. But learning these names is not easy. You have to ponder the meaning and then see how Allah shows us that He is what He is before applying it to yourself and your relationship with others. Join Sunnahfollowers lailanasheeba and learn and watch your relationship with Allah grow.
He was the first successor after the death of the Prophet. He was the first man to accept Islam. He was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Join Sunnah followers every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as Ustad Mukhtar Shahid shares his life story.
She was the daughter of two of the most perfect people ever created. Her mother was the second most perfect woman created, only second to Mary, the mother of Jesus. And her father was none other than the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself. Join Sunnah followers online as Ustada lailanasheeba takes us on the journey of the woman known as Fatimah, the daughter of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, inshallah, we're ready to begin. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series of the heroines of Islam. The heroines of Islam, and this has become one of the most provocative series that I've taught. I mean, I've taught this class before years ago. And this is the first time I've retaught it in like 10 years or so. And the reason why, I don't teach it that often is because it takes a lot out of me to put myself in the shoes of these heroines. And it brings about a lot of melancholy to my heart too, because I truly love these female companions. These are the women that I grew up upon. These are the women that were my role models and my mentors as a child. Subhanallah, where other people had Wonder Woman and Supergirl as their role models in life. My role model was always Aisha, radiallahu anha, and the other female companions such as she. So subhanallah, it takes a lot out of me to teach this series because I truly love these women and I try to put myself in their shoes. And also what makes my teaching of these women different is I'm not just giving you, I'm not teaching from some book that's written that you can go and buy, although there's lots of books written about these companions. As you guys can see, I'm getting the information mostly or mainly from out of the authentic hadiths, not mainly Bukhari, Muslim, and Muwatta. And also I have some people working with me who speak the Fusha language who are helping to translate those hadiths better, because one of the things about learning Islam in the English language, Arabic is nothing like English, and a lot of the hadiths and verses of the Quran have been translated into English, and you really lose the meaning because there's not that a lot of Arabic words you don't have the same meaning in English. So I have a lot of people working with me to help give me the true understanding of the meaning of these hadiths, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. So with that said, we've covered the stories of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I noticed there's a question that a lot of Muslims ask about because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being illiterate. Okay, a lot of the companions were illiterate. As my cousin Mukhtar said, Umar was not illiterate, and neither were his children. Hafsa, who was the wife of the Prophet, just so you guys know, she was the only wife that could read. Even Aisha, radiallahu anha, could not read, guys. She was illiterate, but Aisha had a photographic memory. Okay, and that's what the Arabs were basically. They were not educated people like the Romans and the Persians. And that's why Allah sent Islam to them. Allah knows what he's doing. If Allah wanted to, he could have sent Islam to the Romans because they were the superpowers, or he could have sent it to the Persians. They were the superpowers, or he could have sent it to the Greeks, who were extremely bright and gifted. But Allah chose to send Islam to the Arabs. Why? Because they were illiterate, because they lived in a barren land, and because of their environment, and because of their savagery, because they were a barbaric people. They were very tribal. They were into warfare. Allah chose them because, look at the rest of the world had no choice but to accept that this was a prophet of Allah. To have the knowledge he had, the intelligence he had to be a prophet of Allah. And also in that environment, what people would be more receptive to the truth, other than people who were struggling in a barren environment like the Arabs were. So Allah knows what he's doing. So yes, a lot of them were illiterate. Even Aisha could not read or write, but Hafsa, the daughter of Umar, she knew how to read and write. That's one of the things that made her stand out over Aisha, radiallahu anha, is her literacy. And she had her own mushaf. Aisha did too, but Hafsa wrote hers down herself. She didn't have to have anyone recite, write it for her. But Aisha, had that photographic memory, could memorize everything. So we've covered the story of the wives of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so now what I did was I did the story of Fatimah, radiallahu anha, who was the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we spoke last week about how at a very young age, at the age of 6 and 7, she was out there with her father. He would take her by the hand and have her out with him while he was delivering the message of Islam. And this is important because a lot of Muslim girls today, we're growing up in the days of fitan, the days in which Islam is distorted, the days in which Islam has become strange. People are telling us things about our religion that is not true. Okay? The days of the Ruwaybida. That's what we're living in. So a lot of young girls today grow up thinking that as a Muslim woman, we're inhibited. As a Muslim woman, we're supposed to be invisible. As a Muslim woman, we don't have a voice. We're not to be seen. We have no roles to play. other than satisfying a man and making children. That's not true. Because you can see at the young age of 7, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had his daughter Fatimah accompany him while he went about the business of giving dawah. In fact, she witnessed her father as he was being persecuted. We talked about how when her father was praying outside the Kaaba, the men came and threw dung and stuff on his back, and she ran and took it off of him. And also another time when he was praying, when they came and hit him, and she lashed out at them and screamed for help. So, you learn from that the women, we're not invisible. Muslim women have never been invisible. They were always right there beside the men, just like Khadija radiallahu anha was right there beside the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just like Salama. After when Salama was right there with the Prophet for every battle that he had as his advisor and also as a warrior. And also how Maymuna, may Allah be pleased with her, was a warrior on the battlefield. Subhanallah, Sauda, oldest Sauda was, even though she's in her 60s. How Aisha radiallahu anha said there was no better, more furious woman than Sauda on that battlefield because she could strategize too. So, Muslim women, we never took a back seat. That wasn't the era for back seat anyway. In the dark ages, in the medieval period, no women took the back seat because you had to go out there, because if you took the back seat and something happened to your men, you became slaves for whoever destroyed your men. So the women didn't take back seats in that era. They couldn't, not if they wanted to survive. So Fatimah radiallahu anha was right there with her father in the beginning of his mission, helping him after her mother died. After her mother died, Fatimah felt it her responsibility to care for her father as her mother had. And that's what we talked about the last time we met. We talked about how Fatimah was extremely close to her sisters. But her sisters were older than her. Her sisters had married, and moved out. And how Fatimah radiallahu anha missed her sisters so much, But alhamdulillah, she had Barakah. Who was Barakah? Barakah was the woman who raised the Prophet. Barakah stepped in, even after the death of her mother, to try to help her to not feel so isolated and alone. And also Ali radiallahu anha was like a little brother to her, a bigger brother to her, rather, like a big brother to her, because he was living with the Prophet and as a child and grew up with her as a child too. So we talked about how when Fatimah radiallahu anha grew and became a woman, not only did she look like her father, not only did she have his mannerisms, but she was also a very good speaker. As I said, most of the Arabic people back then were illiterate and could not read or write, but they were gifted with the tongue. They were good speakers, good orators, good poets. And Fatimah radiallahu anha inherited that from her father and her mother. She was a very passionate speaker. She would speak out about Islam. And they say that she could move your heart. And this is important because this also puts to rest the misconceptions that Muslim women hear today too, that you can't speak. The woman's voice is not part of her aura. The woman's voice is not part of her nakedness. However, Allah commands the believing woman that when we do speak publicly, we speak like Fatimah. We speak like Salama spoke. We speak like Aisha spoke. And that is in a voice that is strong and deep, like mine is, not soft voices. We talked about how Fatimah radiallahu anha could make a person's heart move to tears. She knew how to raise her voice, use it, make it go up and make it go down to shake your heart. It's what we call in Arabic, shake your heart. She inherited that from her father, and she inherited that from her mother. She could shake your heart. Very good speakers, the Arabs were. Always were. They still are. That's why so many of you are, mystified by them when they come and do lectures. They're very good speakers. They always have been. Okay, so that's what we talked about the last time we met. So now we're going to continue with the story of Fatimah, radiallahu anha. She's grown up, okay? She's reached the age of puberty, and we're going to take it from here. Let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen. And if you guys have any questions, which I'm pretty sure you're going to have questions, because I'm going to, as always, I try to share information with you that you don't hear from these other speakers, because, they may not have the details from the hadith. Okay. So this is the story of Fatimah, radiallahu anha, the daughter of the Prophet, and we're now going to continue with her puberty. Okay, and it was we talked the last time we met about how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was persecuted so badly by the Quraysh. All the Muslims were, and Fatimah witnessed that. She witnessed how her father, Abu Bakr, and others were persecuted and abused for their belief. And we talked about how she herself would lash out. She would lash out at Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and them for the horrific things that they were doing. Finally, Allah sent down the command telling the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the Muslims can migrate, okay? Migrate, because no longer was it safe for them to live in Mecca. We talked about how the first migration was the migration to Abyssinia. That's where her sisters, Fatimah's sisters, migrated there. Well, now Mecca was no longer safe because of the persecution that the Quraysh were putting on the Muslims. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent the companions out, and Fatimah too. She migrated to Medina too, a few weeks after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. She migrated when with Sauda. Remember, the Prophet had married Sauda after Khadijah had died. He married Sauda. Sauda was in Abyssinia, but her husband had apostated. So she came back to Mecca, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her so he could help her to take care of her children, because she had 6 kids. And she could in turn help him with his, and Fatimah was his. So Fatimah radiallahu anha migrated with Sauda and Zayd to Medina after her father. And it was Fatimah, her sister, Sauda, and Zayd's wife, Barakah. And remember, Barakah was the woman who raised the Prophet. She was like a grandmother to Fatimah. And Barakah's little boy, she had a son named Usama. And also in that group was Abu Bakr's son, Abdullah, and his sisters, Aisha and Asma. So here you can see Aisha and Fatimah, radiallahu anha, were not that far and apart in age. Remember, we talked about when we did the story of Aisha, how there was a jealousy between them. Aisha was jealous of Fatimah, and Fatimah was jealous of her. And remember, they would have little banters with each other about who's better, who's closer to the prophet. And remember, we talked about how after they had migrated to Medina, when they migrated to Medina, the Aisha, radiallahu anha, her house, her apartment was right next to Sauda's. And Sauda was the one raising Fatimah and the kids. And we talked about how there was a window between the two apartments, and how Aisha would stand up and talk to Sauda or talk to Fatimah through that window. And we talked about the one time that Aisha and Fatimah began to argue about who was better, who was closer to the prophet, who he loved the most. And Fatimah said, he loves me the most because I'm his daughter. And Aisha said, no, he loves me the most because I'm his wife. And then Fatimah said, no, he doesn't. No one could love their wife more than their child. And that's when Aisha said, well, guess who's going to be with him in paradise? I'll be with him in paradise. You'll be with Ali. And when Aisha said that, it hurt Fatimah's feelings, and Fatimah began to cry. And when Aisha realized how hurt Fatimah was, she stood on her tiptoes, reached through the window, and kissed the top of Fatimah's head and said, don't you know I wished I was you? I wished I was you because you are a part of him. You are half of him. Half of you comes from him. And she kissed the top of Fatimah's head when she saw she made her cry. Subhanallah. So there was always this rivalry between Fatimah and Aisha, because they were close in age, and it was all about, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in Medina, Fatimah lived with her father in a simple home that he had built attached to the mosque, and next door to her was Aisha. And in the second year after the migration, that's when Fatimah began to receive proposals of marriage through her father. In fact, she received 2 proposals, which were turned down. And then Ali, the son of Abu Talib, plucked up enough courage, and he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to ask for her hand in marriage. But once he arrived in front of the Prophet, he became tongue-tied and shy, and he just couldn't open up his mouth to say anything. But the Prophet knew what he wanted. The Prophet said, do you need something? He said, perhaps you've come to propose marriage to Fatimah. And that's when the Ali said, yes. And according to one hadith, the Prophet said, welcome to the family. And this was taken by Ali and a group of Ansar who were waiting outside for him as his approval. And then we have another hadith that says the Prophet approved and asked Ali, what does he have to offer as a dowry? And Ali said he didn't have anything. And that's when the Prophet said, well, don't you have a shield? He said, you can sell your shield. And so Ali sold the shield to Uthman for 400 dirhams. And as he was hurrying back to pay the Prophet the dowry, Uthman stopped him and said, hey, I'm giving your shield back to you as a present from me and for your marriage to Fatimah. And so thus, guys, Fatimah and Ali were married probably at the beginning of the second year after they migrated. And how old was she at that time? She was around 19 years old. and Ali was around 21. So you can see she was a little older than Aisha, because Aisha was around 14 or maybe around 12 or 13 or 14 around this time. So she was older than Aisha, but still her and Aisha were close in age. And that's why they had this, this like sibling rivalry with each other. And by the way, guys, remember, Ali grew up in the Prophet's house too as a kid. This is why he and Aisha didn't get along too. It was all about their love for the Prophet. They were all children around the same age that used to play together. And they used to fight for the attention of the Prophet. Because I remember Aisha married the Prophet when she was 6, but she did not move in as his wife and fulfill her wifely duties until puberty. But even though she had been married, she was happy about that. And that was a sibling thing that kids, that's why her and Ali and Fatimah didn't get along. Okay. They didn't get along because it was just normal. They were kids vying for the attention of the man that they loved. Okay. So Fatimah radiallahu anha married Ali. She was around 19, maybe younger. Remember, nobody's age is definite. And Ali was around 21. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed the marriage ceremony. And for their wedding feast, they had dates and figs. And some of the Ansar donated a ram, and others made offerings of grain, and they all celebrated the marriage. Now listen to this. I think this is so sweet. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have a hadith that says the Prophet gave Fatimah and Ali as a wedding gift a wooden bed made from palm leaves, and it had a velvet cover. And he also gave them a leather cushion filled with palm fiber. And he gave them a sheepskin, a pot, and a water skin, for making wudu and stuff. And he also gave them a quern for grinding grain. So, the Prophet did this knowing that Ali didn't have much. Remember, Fatimah was his baby. This was the Prophet's favorite daughter, and this was his baby. She was marrying Ali, who was his favorite his favorite cousin. But he knew that Ali didn't have much. So the Prophet wanted them to have something to sleep on. So he gave them a bed with a blanket, a sheepskin, a pot to cook food with. This is the basics of what you need for a marriage. A pot to cook with, a water skin to make wudu with, and a grinder for grinding grain. And that was a big gift. That was a lot. You talk about a wedding gifts. Those were great gifts for back in the medieval period. A pot to cook with. That's all you need is one pot. A big pot to put over the fireplace. The fire. Sheepskin to cover yourself up with. A bed to sleep in. A water skin for making wudu. We good to go. That's a nice house. That's all you need. So alhamdulillah, I thought that was so cute. And also to show how much of a father the Prophet was, he also sent Barakah, who was like a stepmother to him. He sent Barakah too, so she could be there in case Fatimah needs somebody to talk to. I mean, come on, this is his baby getting married. She don't know nothing about birthing babies, subhanAllah. So he gave her all the stuff she needed to have a nice home, and told Barakah go over there and, in case she needs some help, So Barakah went too. So I thought that was so cute. Okay. And as they left, and as Fatima left his house, the prophet made dua for her and Ali. He said, "Oh Allah, bless them, bless their home, and bless any offspring that they may have." So she went into her new home, subhanallah, with her new husband and baraka and her bed, pot, and all of that. In the next morning after the wedding night, now I thought this was sweet too. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Ali's house to check on them. I mean, this was his baby. He knocked at the door and Baraka came and he said to her, "Oh, Ayman, fetch my brother. Tell him to come here." And Ayman, that's Baraka, she said, "Your brother? That's not your brother that married your daughter." And the prophet said, "Yes, we're brothers in faith. Fetch him here." This was the prophet's way of wanting to make sure that Ali was okay, that everything went okay. And Ali came to the door. And when Ali came to the door, the prophet made dua for him. And then he asked him, "Where's Fatima?" So Ali went to get Fatima, and Fatima came. She was shy and cringing with a mixture of awe, a surprise at seeing her father come. This was the morning after her wedding. She's like, "What is my father doing here? This is the morning after my wedding." So she was surprised to find him there asking for her, and also shy. And when she came to him, the prophet said, "I married you to the most dearest person of my family." This was his way of letting her know that, everything was going to be okay, that she was not beginning a new life with a stranger. She was beginning a new life with someone who was raised in the same household as her, who had become Muslim at a young age like her, and who was known for his bravery and virtue. And that's why the prophet referred to him as his brother. So subhanallah, I thought that was so sweet when I found that hadith. And by the way, this is Bukhari and Muslim. I said that shows the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a father, just like any other father. He wanted to check and make sure that his girl was okay, the next morning, that she's happy, everything go okay, and all of that. Alhamdulillah. I thought that was so sweet. So Fatima, radiallahu anha, her life with Ali was happy, but it was also simple in regards to material things, because Ali was kind of poor. Ali didn't have a good job. How did Ali earn his money? He wasn't rich like Uthman. Uthman was a multi-millionaire. And so all of Fatima's sisters, her sisters married rich men, but she was married to a poor man. So she didn't have much. She didn't have any help around the house either. She had to do everything herself. Ali, he worked as a man who carried the water. He used to go to the well and pump the water and then carry it. That's what he did for a living. He wasn't a merchant like Abu Bakr. He wasn't a merchant like Umar. And as far as Fatima, to help with the bills and stuff, or with the needs at that time, she was a grinder. She would grind corn with her hand. And I use this picture here so you can see how hard it was. Back in those days, and they still do it today, this is a Bedouin woman grinding corn. They still grind corn in the desert this way. And so one day, she looked at her hands, and her hands were sore. They were bleeding because of the grinding she had done. As you can see, this is what you do when you grind corn. It can harm your hands. So she complained to her husband. She said, "Oh, Ali, I have grounded so much corn that my hands are blistered and bleeding. And Ali was holding his back. He said, oh, subhanallah. He said, I have lifted so much water that my chest and my back hurts. So Ali said to Fatimah, I heard that your father, has some captives of war. Go and ask him if he can give us a servant. So Fatimah went to visit her father. And her father asked her, what has brought you here, my daughter? She was so ashamed. She was too shy to ask her father for a slave. So she said, I just came to give you greetings of peace, because she couldn't ask him, for a slave. She just felt too shy, too proud. So she went back home. And she told Ali that she was too shy to ask her father for anything. So that's when they decided to go together. So he and Fatimah together went and asked the Prophet, if they could have a servant to help them around the house. Fatimah's hands were bleeding. Ali's back was hurting. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam refused them. He said, I can't give you a slave. He said, what would that look like if I give to you? And we got all these poor Muslims living in the mosque who have nothing. They have no food, no clothing, no shelter. He said, I would look bad giving you a slave or servant when these people, are poor. So Ali and Fatimah went back home, feeling kind of bad. But before they, could go to sleep that night, the Prophet came back to them to visit them. And he said, let me tell you something better than having a slave. He said, I want you to say the following words that the angel Jibreel taught me to say. Say, Subhanallah 10 times after every prayer, and Alhamdulillah 10 times after every prayer, and Allahu Akbar 10 times. And also say them 33 times when you go to bed. If you do that, he said, Allah will make it easy for you to fulfill your daily chores and obligations. And so that's what so that's what they did. And Ali tells us in another hadith that for the rest of his life, he would say those 3 words after every prayer 10 times, and he would say those 3 words before going to sleep every night after that. And that's how he was able to handle whatever chores or obligations he has. And this is a supplication that or words of remembrance that I encourage all of you to recite too, because I too recite those every night and after every prayer. And that's how I'm able to do all the things I do on this website, plus my personal life, and still keep it moving without a husband or anything else. Okay. So Fatimah and Ali were very happily married, but they had a very difficult time. She didn't live the rich and lavish lifestyle that her sisters did. Often there was no food in her house. And then when she did get food, she would go and check on her father, because remember, the Prophet too, she inherited this from him. The Prophet too would go without food. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he received something in charity, he would give it to someone else. And Fatimah was the same way. Okay, so she didn't have the rich and lavish lifestyle of her sisters. Okay. We have a hadith, whereas once the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went on a journey, And when he came back, he did his usual. He went to the mosque and prayed 2 rakats. And after praying those 2 rakats, he then went to Fatimah's house. And Fatimah welcomed him. She kissed him. She kissed his face and his eyes, and she began to cry. And the prophet asked her, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Because you are the prophet of Allah, and your color is so pale, and you've lost so much weight, and your clothes are so worn and shabby." She was crying because she could tell her father hadn't had nothing to eat either. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to her, "O Fatimah, don't cry, because Allah has sent your father with a mission that which he would cause to affect every house on the face of the earth." So in other words, these are the sacrifices. He let Fatimah know these are the sacrifices that we make, for the sake of Allah. I know when we was doing the class Saturday with Dr. Asim talked about sacrifices. What sacrifices have we made for Allah? If the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to, he could have been the richest man on earth. Allah sent Jibreel to him one day, and Jibreel said, "If you want, I could give you, Allah can give you all the treasure that the king of Persia has." But the prophet said no. He turned that down. What sacrifice? He sacrificed the life of this world for the hereafter. Remember when we did the story of his wives? All of the Prophet Muhammad's wives came from wealthy families. And that's one of the problems he had with Aisha and Hafsa. He had to teach them that it's not befitting for a wife of a prophet to live a lavish lifestyle. That's one of the things that Aisha radiallahu anha struggled with. She had to give up nice furniture, a nice home, to live just a life of simplicity, because it wouldn't look right for a prophet to have all this rich stuff when his followers were people who were poor. Again, why did Allah send Islam to the Arabs, who were an illiterate people? That's why. So how would it look if this man from the desert lived like a king when the rest of the desert people looked like vagabonds? Okay. So what sacrifices have we made? The Prophet Muhammad sacrificed the riches of this world, even Fatimah. Like he told her, "You are the daughter of a prophet. You are the daughter of a prophet. It wouldn't look right for me to give you a slave, for you to have servants. You are the daughter of a prophet. You have to represent me." And this is something that us women have to understand. You're supposed to represent your husband. Something that our children need to understand. Our children are supposed to represent us, not only in appearance, but in behavior, in attitude too. Fatimah radiallahu anha, she represented her father. She sacrificed. She had a hard life. Okay? So, Fatimah radiallahu anha. Now remember, guys, when she married Ali, she had to stay in Ali's home. But eventually they had a place that was donated to them by one of the Ansar men who knew that she would be happier living close to her father. So remember, she grew up in the home of Sauda. Sauda's home was attached to the mosque. All the wives of the prophet, they all had their own homes. They had apartments, and the apartments were attached to the mosque. Well, there was an Ansar man who ended up donating his house to Ali. So that way Ali and Fatimah could also live in an apartment attached to the mosque so she could be close to her father and also to Sauda and the others. So she was very happy at that. So after that, Fatimah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ali, they were close together in regards to living arrangements. And it was in the middle of the second year after the migration that her sister Ruqayya became sick with the measles. And this was right before the Battle of Badr. And the sad thing that happened was Ruqayya died, during this time. And this was the second time that Fatimah had to witness the death of someone close to her. Her mother died when she was young, and her sister Ruqayya, who she was close to, had just died too. And she died before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam could see her, because the Prophet was away on a journey. And when the Prophet heard that Ruqayya was sick, he hurried back. But when he got there, it was too late. So when he returned to Medina, what the Prophet did was went to visit her grave, and Fatimah went with him. So this was another sad moment in the life of Fatimah, because she was close to her sisters. But to subhanallah, to have to bury, her sister, this was something very sad. And also Uthman was sad too, because she was the one that was married to Uthman, the first daughter that had married Uthman. But alhamdulillah, Fatimah was so sad, she began to cry at the death of her sister when she was at the grave. And when they came back to Medina, some of the other women were screaming and hollering and crying, but then there were others who were just weeping for the martyrs of Badr and for Ruqayya. And these women were just weeping with tears. Umar began to yell at those women and tell them to stop lamenting. And the Prophet had to correct Umar and let him know it's okay, for them to weep. What we can't do is scream and holler from the tongue like those other women were doing, that the Prophet had to check. He said, but for these women here, this is fine. We can weep the tears as long as we don't scream out and all of that. And so that was a sad moment for Fatimah, but it didn't last long. It became better because Uthman married her other sister. And right after that, subhanallah, Fatimah found out that she was pregnant. And this was something, that cheered up the whole family. Okay. Fatimah, radiallahu anha, gave birth to a boy in the month of Ramadan. This was the third year of the migration. And this was El Hassan. And then after giving birth to him, she gave birth to another son, El Hussein. And subhanallah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very attached to them. Fatimah would bring the two boys to see their grandfather, and he would take them to the mosque. And not only that, guys, but also Fatimah gave birth to a third child. And I know you guys are going to talk. I'm going to do her story for y'all later. Her name was Zainab. She had a daughter named Zainab. Okay. And also Fatimah had a fourth child. This child she named Kulthum. So that's how many kids she had from Ali. She had Hassan and Hussein, and she also had two daughters that she named after her sisters, Zainab, who we're going to talk about, and then Kulthum. So 4 kids that she had by Ali. And so those were her progeny. And it was through Fatimah that the progeny of the prophet survived, because all his male sons died in infancy, and the 2 children of Zainab, named Ali and Umayma, died young, and also Ruqayyah's child died. So Fatimah was the only child of the prophet whose kids grew up, to marry and have others and all of that. And although Fatimah was busy with pregnancy, she took as much part as she could in the affairs of the Muslim community in Medina. Before she was married, she was a hostess to the poor and the destitute. After the Battle of Uhud, she went with the women to the battlefield and took time to dress her father's wounds. At the Battle of the Ditch, she played a major supportive role with the other women in preparing food. Also, she led the Muslim women in prayer, and that's the dalil, one of the dalil that yes, you can lead, a Muslim woman can lead other women in prayer. Okay. She also accompanied the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he made Umrah. In fact, it's her hadith in Sahih Bukhari that shows that makeup is not haram. While they were making Hajj, that's when the command came down about the hadi, the animal to sacrifice. And Fatimah said, well, I'll put on my kohol, just like what I'm wearing. Fatimah wore her kohol on Hajj. That hadith is in Bukhari, and you don't never hear these brothers talk about it. They talk about Hajj and the ritual of Hajj, and they skip right over that long. It's a whole page long hadith about how Fatimah, radiallahu anha, was making Hajj with her father, making Umrah with her father, and she had her kohol on, and she asked her father, did she have to remove it? Hello, brothers. Makeup is not haram. Subhanallah. So she accompanied the Prophet when he made Umrah in the 6th year after the Hijrah, after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And in the next year, her and her sister were among the Muslims who took part with the Prophet in the conquest of Mecca. And it was on this occasion that both Fatimah and her sister visited the home of their mother, Khadijah, and recalled the memories of their childhood. Okay? Now, in Ramadan of the 10th year, just before his farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet confided to Fatimah a secret that he didn't tell to anyone else. He told her, Jibril recited the Quran to me, and I to him once every year. But this year, he recited it to me twice. I only think he did that because my time to leave this world had come. So the Prophet, shared this knowledge with her and not with anyone else, not even Aisha, that this would be the last year of his life. And on his return from the farewell pilgrimage, that's when the Prophet became sick, and he spent his final days in the home of Aisha, and Fatimah would come to visit him as all the other wives did. And one day before he died, he called for Fatimah. And when she came, he kissed her and he whispered some words in her ear, and she began to cry. Then he whispered in her ear again, and she smiled. And it was later that Aisha asked, what did he say to you to make you cry and laugh? And Fatimah said, when he whispered to me the first time, he told me that he was going to meet his Lord. And that's why I cried. And then he whispered to me and said, don't cry because you will be the first of my family to join me. So I laughed. And not long afterwards, the Prophet Muhammad died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fatimah was so grief-stricken that she would often be seen crying profusely. One of the companions said that he did not see Fatimah laugh at all after the death of her father. Now, this is what gets me. This part of her story, really, really gets me, how she died. One morning, early in the month of Ramadan, just 5 months after, this is just 5 months after her father died, Fatimah woke up looking unusually happy. In the afternoon of that day, she called Salma bint Umays, who was a person that was looking after her, and she asked her for some water, and she filled it in a tub for a bath. So she took a bath and she put on her new clothes and she perfumed herself. Then she asked Selma to put her bed in the courtyard of the house. And with her face looking up at the sky, she called for Ali to come. And when Ali came outside and saw her lying in the bed in the middle of the courtyard, he said, "What's wrong with you, Fatimah?" She smiled at him and she said, "Oh, Ali, I have an appointment today. I have an appointment with my father, the messenger of Allah." And that's when Ali began to cry because he knew what she was saying was that she was about to die. She told him to look after their sons, and she advised that she be buried without a ceremony. And then she smiled, looked up, and closed her eyes and just died. She was only 29 years old. Subhanallah. So that's the story of Fatimah, radiallahu anha. She died just less than 6 months after her father and just knew she was going to go. She took her bath, put on her best clothes, put on her perfume, lay there looking up at the sky, told her husband, take care of the kids, and just died. Subhanallah. So that's the story of Fatimah, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of the things, like I said, that stands out the most, there's a hadith from Abu Musa Ash'ari. This hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. He says, Subhanallah, Fatimah, not only did she resemble her father in looks, and not only did she resemble him in her behavior, her mannerisms, but she could speak like him. Everybody was impressed with how passionate of a speaker she was. She could raise her voice and make the Quraysh stop. She could raise her voice, and get your attention and make you cry. He said to have this resplendent face and to have that voice like her father's, it was just amazing, so subhanallah, it's something for us to think about. Like I said, so much to learn from her. She was with her father as a child, accompanying him as he did his dawah. She was right there with him, on the battlefield. Subhanallah. And we think that Muslim women are inhibited. We think that Muslim women don't have a voice. We think that Muslim women are supposed to be invisible. Not these Muslim women. Maybe the women of today are supposed to be that way. but not these women. All right. Are there any questions or comments? Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments about Fatimah radiyallahu anha?
I have a question. I never knew she had the two girls. Whatever happened? When did they die? Did they die at infants as well?
No, they had kids. There's a whole new story. That, in fact, the Shiites make a big deal out of her daughter Zainab. You know, they say that she had a lot to. They make a lot of lies up about her, saying that she hated Yazid and all of this, and she did play a big role at the Karbala. You know, these women lived. She died her daughter died at the age of 60. They lived and had kids and stuff too. Like I said, the prophet's line is through her. We got people today who are the descendants of him through her. Her kids lived and had kids and all of that. Yeah.
I always hear the hadiths on the boys. I never knew that she had two girls.
Yeah, her girls have talked about a lot in the Arabic world, but in the West, like I said, unfortunately for Western Muslims, you only hear what the brothers want y'all to hear. You only learn what they want y'all to learn. They don't speak about Zainab. Zainab is a very, very, and also Kulthum, both of them. I'm gonna do both their stories for y'all, you know, but I don't hear people speak about them either, but I knew of them, you know, but that's the way the West does. They want y'all to think that you're inhibited, that Muslim women are inhibited, that Muslim women are not of empowerment. So, of course, they're not going to tell you their story, because these were not inhibited women. These were warriors. Yeah.
I would like to know, what was those 3 words that Fatima was told to say before she go to bed? And
Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, and Allahu Akbar. You should say it after every prayer, and also 33 times before you go to sleep. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Most of you probably do that, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I just never knew.
Yeah, that's the purpose of it. Not only that, you'll also get trees built for you in paradise too. But also the main purpose of saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar is to help you get through your daily chores and daily events and give you the strength to handle whatever you have to handle during the day and all of that. Mm-hmm.
That will be on repeat.
Yeah.
Going onward. That's so inspiring. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Subhanallah. And I finally got this thing back working on the phone. Now I see it on my phone. So I guess it's working, guys.
Oh, okay. Alhamdulillah.
I don't know what I did. I put a new schedule on there, but it's working. But I see, because then tomorrow it won't. While I'm still connected, let me look how it looks on the computer. Hold on, let me see what it looks like on the computer while I'm still connected.
Oh, that was a beautiful story. I mean, it's just beautiful. Her love for her father, and beautiful story. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Oh wow, it's working. I finally did it right, y'all.
Her love for her father.
Oh, that's Sabrine. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it working, Sabrine. That was you. Was that you here or okay?
No, right then. At first I didn't recognize the voice, and then I said, that sounds like me.
Okay, I got it connected. Yeah. All of these female companions, man. Like I said, and the Arabic women know their history. That's why I say the Arabic women ain't like that. They not inhibited women anyway. That's why it behooves me how Western women fall for that crap. You think Arabic women are licking pus off of somebody? No, the women are crazy.
Maybe we should have more history like that.
Well,
Maybe they would get strength.
That's why I'm doing the story of these female companions, so y'all can see there's no need for that feminism and all that stuff. Islam liberated us. Islam gave women rights that she never had before. It's just that these Western Muslims need to learn what their rights are, learn what their rights are and what their roles are, and learn their religion, learn the lawful and the unlawful. Okay? Yeah, because we're not inhibited. We're not supposed to be invisible. That makes me angry when I hear some man say that as a Muslim woman, you're supposed to be as if you're not there. Who said that? Did Allah say I'm supposed to be as if I'm not here? Khadijah was right there. All the prophets' wives were right there. These female companions were right there. So who is this telling you that you're supposed to be as if you're not there? That's not Islam. That sounds like some oppression. And that's why Allah is sending all this war to us, because we're deviating away from true Islam. Islam is becoming strange. It's becoming watered down. It's becoming something that it wasn't never meant to be. It's becoming oppressive, like Allah said it would. All this oppressiveness. We're oppressing each other. That's not Islam. Who said I'm supposed to be invisible? No one. And I want to see somebody try to make me invisible. Try to make me invisible and see what happens. Yeah. Subhanallah. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop right here for today. Tomorrow, we have the 6 o'clock class. Please, everyone, I meant to let me see if I can do that. Hold on for a second. I meant to upload that book while I'm sitting here too. If I can. Can I do that? Yeah, I can upload it right here. I make sure that everybody goes to the let me put it up here. Whew. Is it gonna go up in there? Yeah. Make sure everybody pick up the new book. Oh, how do I do this? This is the new book. Go to Amazon.com. Diluting El Wala Wal Bara. Diluting El Wala Wal Bara. This is the third of the trilogy. Okay, this book is on Amazon.com. Remember, all of your buying the book goes to help pay for the Sunnahfollowers.org school. Okay, and we'll be starting this tomorrow. This is the new book for the 6 o'clock class. It's $19.99. Pick it up. Amazon.com, Diluting El Wala Wal Bara. This is volume 2. Awakening Faith in a Non-Faith Centered World. Awakening faith in a non-faith centered world. That's what this is going to be about. In other words, how to hold on and practice your religion in a non-Islamic society. So you want to get this book for tomorrow. Buy it as soon as possible. We're going to begin it tomorrow. It's 300 and something pages too. Yeah. And also tomorrow, what else we have tomorrow? We have that my termites, right? Yeah, I think that. Yeah, the Hadith class tomorrow night at 9 p.m. too. That's going to be tomorrow at 9, inshallah. Okay. And by the way, I did fix the website, the Sunnahfollowers.net. Let me show it to y'all here so y'all can see. I got it where it's streaming. Let's hope I can. And I put the schedule there too. I got a new schedule. I think I like this one better. I don't know. The only thing I don't like is I have to do it manually every day, unlike the other one. But can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the new schedule for the page here. I like it because I can change the color and stuff. and it's easier for me to do. And then I click on, see, it tells you here tomorrow, diluting well better is at 6 p.m. And then also Hadith class, termites. And y'all see I'm streaming live. You can click on the live stream. It's working now because there I am. Y'all see me there? And y'all see I'm streaming. There. We're streaming live there too. So if you don't want to, I got it fixing. I got it fixed. I don't know how long it's going to work, but yeah. And you can also, donate. There's our donation tab to make a donation. Also, the Sunnah Followers Shop. Click on the shop. It takes you to the Sunnah Followers Shop. Don't forget, oh, look, they on sale, y'all. Everything's on sale again, 25%. The Sunnah Followers Shop. Okay, so check out the Sunnah Followers page. I tried to, fix it up there. All right, guys, I'm going to close out for right now. Inshallah, I'll be in the Zoom room for a minute, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you guys order the book, Diluting Well Better, Volume 2 from Amazon.com. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Geechee, do you like